All right, guys, welcome to Scared Money Don't Make Money. My name is Sam, 2K Sam, they call me.
My name is Sunny. I'm just a gambler.
So this show is about gambling, and me and Sonny, we've been gamblers for over 20 years, actually like probably 30 years. I'm 49 this year, and so yeah, I've been gambling before I was 21, and we got some crazy stories.
Yeah, I'm 54. Started gambling probably like when I was 18 illegally. So I have a lot of history.
Yeah, so this kind of funny because like we go to Vegas often, or even casinos often, wherever we travel, and I want to talk about superstition today, and like how like different things can change up like how your gambling session goes, because like I've been in sessions, like in the first 5 minutes I'll be up 2 to 4K, or like in the first 2 to 5 minutes I can be down 5K, and it's all based on like the way the table rolls or the cards come out, but also based on how other people like come in and out of the table, right?
Yeah, it's like the energy as well. If you have like good positive energy or if you have like bad energy, that affects the betting and the cards, which is superstitious.
Yeah, for sure. And I know like my choice of game is blackjack and roulette, and Sonny's is craps. So like we all have like different ways that we play and different strategies. And like I played craps with Sonny, and like a lot of times we do win, but then like there's times where just like just goes the opposite way, just like with any kind of gambling. So
Yeah, like in gambling in general, it goes in streaks too. So like if you're on a hot run, you get really hot, but when you get cold too. And one thing about a cold streak is that you shouldn't steam bet, which
oh,
I think we often do.
it's talking about Steam Bet.
Yeah.
This weekend we were in Vegas, and we were up like I don't know, like $1,400, and I was up like $800, and then Sonny was like, "Hey, let's just walk and play blackjack," and I was like, "No, let's go one more roll and let's see what happens." And then what happens? We lose.
Exactly. So after that one hand, after Sam said, "Hey, you know what? Let's just play one more hand," I was like, "Okay, we'll just play one more hand and see what happens." But in my mind, I'm like, "This is probably bad because usually when you say one more hand, it turns into 20 more hands."
Exactly. And we play the strategy of playing don't pass, which is we want the roller to crap out, roll 7.
Right.
And the first roll came out, and we, instead of crapping out to win, we actually hit a point and we lost. And then what happened is like we said, Sonny goes, no. And I was like, let's just walk away. And Sonny was like, no, we're down, but we were still up, and he wants
Right.
to get that money back. So it kind of is steam betting there.
Yeah, but then we had a profit, so I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's just bet our profits. If we lose, then maybe we could walk away. So I was hoping that we would win that bet, but unfortunately, we did hit the point and we lost. So after that, I'm like, then I started steaming because we lost our profit, and I remember saying, okay, we should walk away after that one more roll comment, but we didn't.
Yeah, and at that point we were even, and instead of like walking away and resetting, Sonny said, "Okay, bet again." And then I believe it was a 10 that popped up, and 10 is usually a hard number to hit in crap, so you hit 7 before the 10. And I asked him what I should lay, and he goes $1,200. I was like, all right, so I was all gone with my money, and I had to pull out another 1,200 out of my pocket to lay, and then the first roll was a 10. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
And usually, when the 4 and 10 comes out, that's when you have to like pretty much lay the full amount, and that's how you get your money back. But in this case, and like Sam mentioned, we unfortunately hit the number and we lost.
And at that point, it was like, okay, now we're down instead of even. And Sonny's like, okay, we got to play again. And the story goes, we hit the point 6 out of 7 times.
Right.
And then we ended up losing a lot more money.
Yeah, and then actually 4 and 10 came out maybe 3 times, and we lost on the 4 and 10s,
Yeah.
which cost us a lot. So lesson learned.
Lesson learned.
So when somebody tells you one more roll, you just walk away.
Or do one more roll and then walk away.
And that is true, which I've done before where, well, so you know what, we'll just put like a little out there. If we lose his hand, we walk away. I remember we did that at Palms when we played together. So that worked. But this time, I don't know, for some reason, I just was pissed off.
But I mean, if you're a disciplined gambler, right? Like you have a good chance of winning. For instance, like I remember playing at the Wynn I don't know when it was, but it was probably like in 2017, and we were playing craps, and we had a pretty large bankroll, and I remember like crapping out like 18 times straight, or it was like 11 or 12 times straight, but like, it was like 18 out of 23 times we crapped out of like 40-minute run, and we made about like $35,000. And then we were like, okay, you know what? With that money, we're gonna go and have some fun, go shopping, and it was a good time. So like, if you're disciplined, I would say like gambling you have to be very disciplined, right?
Right, and that takes a lot of experience as well too. But even if you're experienced, the for you to stop is really hard.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, so it just takes a lot out of you.
It is, and it's my sessions that I've been positive on trips has been like where I hit and run, right? Like, so I'm like, I'm up 5 to 10,000 or whatever, and instead of being greedy and walking, keep trying to get for more, you kind of walk away and reset and start over with the smaller bankroll again and keep the profits in your pocket. But like when you try to like go over the top, it's kind of like when you start like losing because, like you said before, like it goes on streaks. So it can be positive streaks, but then if you're on a negative streak, it's like you're going down. Like,
Right. And I remember the first time I went to Vegas with Sam was a company trip, and then we were staying at MGM, and this is the first time I've seen Sam gamble, and like that's why we call him 2K Sam. So I witnessed at least like 5 or like 8 sessions where he would go in there play blackjack, and then he'd be up 2K in 2 minutes. I'm like, dang, that's pretty good, Sam. And then he would walk away. I go, well, that's pretty disciplined. And then he'd go back to the table like 30 minutes later. He do the same thing, another 2,000. After 2 minutes, I'm like, wow. So like I think that trip he was up probably like 20, 30K just playing like 2 minutes and winning 2,000 each session. So that was pretty good.
yeah, I mean, and I think that's like how I normally gamble to be disciplined and like, but like the worst, I mean, I was up, I think 25K that trip, but like, and then you feel really good, but then, there's like times where you feel really shitty because like you start off on a negative run. Let's say you cash out, you cash in 2,000 and you lose that in 5 minutes. You're like, damn, now you're in a hole and you got to try to win it back. And that's like the worst feeling. So like either if you win or lose can make your trip really fun or really depressing. And it's like people around you feel your tension like, hey, he must be up and gambling or he must be down. Because I'm sure like, that's why sometimes I don't like going with the family or wife because like if I'm down, I kind of want to sulk a little bit and be like, oh my God, I got to win this back. And I don't want to be. But then like if I'm up, they're like, oh, they know because I'm like giving my wife like, here's 1,000, here's 1,000. Yeah. She's like, oh, you must be up.
So usually with gambling, that affects your emotions and, and how everybody sees you because your personality changes.
Right.
Like Sam said, when you lose, you're down. You don't want to go out. You don't want to eat. you just want to stay in your room. You don't want to hang out, have a drink, whatever. Right. But when you're up, you're like really happy. You're giving money to everybody and say, hey, let's go have fun. But like usually when you start in a hole or like when you go to Vegas and you lose the first session, that's probably the worst feeling there.
It is.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is because like I can say because me and Sonny, we've been gambling for so long, like we kind of like understand the ups and downs of it. And so like the discipline part and when we're not disciplined, whereas like I can honestly say that I used to be an addict. So like when I was 20 in college and I was like working and going to college at the same time, trying to work. And that's when I first like learned how to gamble. So I had a fake ID. I went on the riverboats in Chicago and I was like, bro, like the first time I went, I took like $500 and that's probably like all I had. Right. And then I played blackjack and I played some slot machines and I walked away with like $2,500. And I was like, this is easy money. And I was like, that's probably the worst thing that could ever happen to me in gambling. Cause I was like, dude, I don't have to work. I can just go to casinos and like make money off the boats and like.
Yeah. And plus, you think it's so easy. Like that's probably the worst is to win the first time because you have that, the edge again, and you go back and you think you can win again, but at the same time, the casinos, they built their hotels based on us.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like that was the worst thing that can happen because over the next 2 or 3 years, 2 years of being in college, and I was like, working graveyard shift, going to class during the time. And then I would use the money of a paycheck to go back to the casinos to win, right? And like, I remember like, I would apply for credit cards so I can get cash advances. And then by the time I got out of college, because of my gambling debt, I had like 30,000 in credit card debt. And like, back in like, what was it, 1998, I get out of college, I'm like making like 40,000 a year, making a living and trying to pay off 30,000 in credit card debt. Eventually I filed for bankruptcy. So I had a bankruptcy early in my 20s because of gambling. So like during that time I stopped gambling. I learned how to like be disciplined and then work. And then after I started making money, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to gamble what I can afford and then learn strategies. Because when I was gambling before, it was like, I wasn't studying how to gamble. It was more like, let me just gamble. And it was very emotional. It was like adrenaline and emotional. And then I would borrow money from people and I would like, oh my, and I was like, dude, and I remember it was like I had to pay rent in my senior year of college and I had like $1,000 left and I had to pay rent. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take that 1,000 and turn it to 2,000 or 3,000. And then I lost it all. And I literally had like $10 in my bank account. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. That was like the worst feeling in my life.
So it's funny, like Sam mentioned that he had a lot of credit card debt. And growing up, gambling fresh out of college, I had the same issue where I had probably like 20, 30 credit cards. Yeah. And I had maybe like $30,000 debt. And I had to file bankruptcy as well. And that kind of opened my eyes. Like, wait a minute, this is not the right path. You don't want to be in debt in gambling. So of course, I try to wise up and try to learn how to gamble. So, I started playing craps, and I felt like craps was like the best odds and, the best strategy for me when I was kind of trying to figure out gambling. But it kind of worked out, So
yeah. So like now it's like I think you do the same thing, which is like I don't really touch my bank account when I go gambling. So I have a side fund where like that money is aside for gambling.
Right.
And it's just cash. And it's if I lose or win, that's what I use. I don't put it into bank or whatever. And like like this weekend, I had a pretty good run. Like in the first day, I probably was down like $7,000 or $8,000 in the beginning on Friday evening. And then like, that includes that crap run that we ran into.
Right.
And then I went to blackjack at the Fountain Blue, and then I won 10,000. So I was net positive 3,000 on the way back.
Right.
So then the rest of the trip, I kind of went back to my discipline, which was like hit and runs. And then especially like I got lucky. I don't know, it was my lucky weekend, but I play $100 chips on 1720 and 2932. So if I hit any of those four numbers, I hit $1,700.
And this is roulette.
This is roulette, yeah. And roulette, and I hit it 5 times on the first roll. So like that also helped me out. So I would say like this past weekend, just going back to my discipline of playing blackjack and roulette, doing little quick hit and runs, I was probably net positive like $13,000, which is pretty good.
It's pretty good, but at the same time, when I was watching Sam, when he first hit the roulette for $200 and then turned out into 17, he went to blackjack.
Yeah.
And then so I followed him to the blackjack table, and then he was doing pretty good in blackjack, but instead of like you said, he won 13,000, whatever. He could have been up maybe 30K if he played the normal way that he should have played. This was the first time where I've seen Sam where like, oh, you know what? How come you're not playing your way, Sam? Because, I know you're trying to be disciplined, but at the same time, that
I was too cautious.
You were too cautious, but at the same time, when the table's hot, you have to press a little bit.
Right.
And that's something that we're still trying to learn where, okay, we get scared, but at the same time, we got to still press and play the odds on that.
But the problem is sometimes you don't know when the streak is happening. So you're like, hindsight, you're like, oh my gosh, I won 8 hands in a row.
Right.
But then during the 8 hands in a row, you're like, dang, you just remember the negative parts. Because like, oh, I just remember the last session, I put $1,000 bet and then I doubled on 1,000. I lost 2,000. It's a $4,000 swing right there, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm kind of nervous and I felt a little cautious. And that's what we're saying, like scared money don't make money, right? Exactly. And so it was that situation. And Sonny's like, why didn't you press? And I was like, I don't know. I'm putting $700, $800, but I couldn't get to like $1,000, $2,000 bets. Yeah. And I was winning almost every hand with the dealer busting.
Exactly. Yeah. So there were like certain scenarios where if the dealer busts, that's a good sign. If you're making hands, like let's say you get 15 and then dealer's showing a 10, then you bust out a 6 to get a 21 to beat them, that's another good sign.
Right, and I was hitting every 21s too. I was hitting like 15 and 16s and making cards.
Exactly, and double downs too. Yeah. So combination of all those three was a sign that this table was going to be really good or that shoe was going to be really good.
Right.
Which I sat over Sam for like good 10, 15 minutes where he didn't impress as
Right.
much as he should have. And that's something that you got to learn when you gamble. It's like when you got to take the opportunity and you got to go with that flow.
Yeah, and it's funny because we were eating dinner, then came back to the Wynn Hotel, and I told Sonny and some of the people we were with, I said, I'm going to watch me bet $200. I want to turn this into some money. And then that first $200 I turned into $1,700, and that $1,700 I turned into like $6,000.
Yep.
And so, like Sonny said, it could have been like $15,000, but I walked away with $6,000. And one of the reasons that afterwards Sonny left and he played craps and I stayed on the table, and we're talking about superstition here, right? And like there was this, I was playing one-on-one, which was good because I kind of know how like the cards roll. And then like if things go bad, then I play two hands to mix it up and then getting back to the streak, right? But like for a 15-minute session, some dude came into the table and was wanting to play with me, and he only had like $400. And he was very negative, and he was always on his phone, and the dealer kept saying like, hey, can't use the phone. And like, he was like, shut up. And like, he was being rude to the dealer. And like, he didn't even ask if I can like, do you want me to wait before I come in? Because I was kind of on a hot roll. He just came in. So I was like, the dealer looked at me. Instead of betting $500 a hand, I dropped it to $100 or $200, whatever the minimum was. And then I lost like 5 hands in a row because of this dude. And he wasn't hitting 15s and 16s and wasn't playing right. So at the time I was up like 5,000. And when he was sitting with me, I lost another 3. So I went back to 2. So then I had to grind it out again. Mm-hmm. But like after he left and he was so negative and like just that energy we're talking about, like you're like, I should have just stood up and like not played and wait for him to leave. But then like I stayed and lost 3,000. But as soon as he lost his money, he left. Then I was playing by myself again, and I brought it back up to 6,000. So I was like, man, if I sat away when he was there, then I might be up another 4 or 5 or 3,000 from not losing that time, right? So like the superstition, but we get all stubborn and we're like, no, I think we can still win, and it doesn't matter, but it does make an effect on like the other people around you and the energy and the vibe, right?
And I always mention to Sam too, because like every time he has this bad session, he comes to us, oh my goodness, this is what happened. This guy did this and that. I'm like, Sam, this always happens to you. So why don't you just walk away and just kind of reset, or go to another table or do something else? But he's so stubborn that he thinks he could still win. But at the same time, like Sam, you probably 8 out of 10 times you always lose.
Yeah, when it's bad energy.
Yeah, exactly. So I always tell him just to walk away, and get a reset. So that's part of the game strategy, or trying to be disciplined in Vegas. When you're gambling, you got to kind of check yourself and say, all right, this is what we should do, but don't gamble on emotions. When you start gambling with emotions, then everything just falls apart.
Right. So let me ask you a question, like, because I have kids that are, I have 3 boys, and one of them is turning 20, and obviously they're allowed to gamble at Morongo because you have to be 18.
That's true.
So like, I know you started gambling in Morongo before too, but what's your thought on guys or men who are like learning to gamble? Is it better to just not learn how to gamble and tell your kids not to gamble, or do you teach them properly so like when they do gamble on their own that you show them the right way of doing it?
My preference is to actually show them how to gamble the right way, but at the same time, I want them to know that there are restrictions and there is a budget. When you gamble, I don't want them to think that, hey, I could turn $100 to $1,000 all the time, because once you start thinking that way, then you're going to start losing. So maybe for me, I want to teach them the right way, because eventually they're going to start going to Vegas or gambling with somebody else. And instead of them not knowing how to gamble and giving the money away so easily, I want them to have a fighting chance and try to make a little bit of money or even break even. So for me, I want them to learn.
I mean, I agree with you, but I think like some people are like, oh no, why are you even teaching your kids how to gamble? And it's like, well, they're men, they're Asian, and if they're around friends socially, they're gonna gamble. So like, why don't you teach them how to do it properly versus like, oh man, just don't gamble. And they're like, I don't even know what to do anymore. And like, so like, I'm teaching Matthew like, okay, you got to play blackjack this way. You got to learn when to walk away. And the funny thing is like, he's a pretty conservative kid. So like, he doesn't even like losing 100. Right. So like, he's like, I know his personality. So like, if you teach him the proper way of doing it, hopefully he's going to learn. Like, I know like, our other friend, my cousin, his son is same age as Matthew. And I know they went to Morongo one day, and Alex started with like $200, and he played blackjack, and he took $200 into $8,000. And so that could have been the worst thing that could happen to a 19-year-old kid.
Exactly.
Like happened to me. And like, unlike his dad, we'll go back to his story when he turned 40 of winning 20 hands in a row and only winning like $500. But like Alex was opposite. He actually like took 200 to 8,000 by betting, like pressing, exactly. And when he was on a roll.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there to witness it, but Matthew was telling me like there's points where he's betting $1,000 a hand. Right. And this is like a 19-year-old kid, like betting $1,000 a hand. You're like,
crazy,
bro. And I was like, dude, why don't you just walk away with 5,000 or like 8,000? And he's like, I don't know. He just kept pushing and pushing. And then he got to a point where, because obviously in his head, it's like, that's not my money that I brought with. It would have been different. But he ended up walking away with like $2,000 or $3,000. But I was like, man, you could have just walked with $5,000 even or $6,000.
Or like, my mentality is like, if I'm up $8,000, you know what? I'll risk another $2,000, walk away with $6,000. If I lose that $2,000, then you know what? I'm going to walk away.
Right.
And not be stubborn.
Right. But we've had like 40 years of like 40 years of like experience, so we can do that. Even then it's sometimes hard, right? But like a kid who just started gambling, he gets to 8,000. I was like, oh, how do you teach that kind of discipline? I was like, man, you should have just put 5,000 or 6,000 in his pocket, lose that, and then reset and start over again somewhere else for 1,000. But he just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference between us and them. We have more experience versus like they have no experience, and there's a lot of new money to them. Yeah,
but it's crazy because for us we have money, so it's like, oh, 8,000 really doesn't make a big difference. But someone who's working a part-time job as a busboy, making like a couple $100 a week or whatever, gets to 8,000. That's like almost life-changing for him, Yes,
but at the same time, this is scary because, like you said, you have that taste of winning.
It is.
And then next time he goes, he's going to probably think that, oh, you know what? I can do the same thing.
Yeah. And actually, I think the last few trips they went together, they've been losing. So Alex got to the point where he's like, I'm not going to gamble anymore. I'm done.
It's not fun anymore.
Not fun anymore. But then he still did it anyway. So he's like, oh my. I was like, I thought you're going to quit. I'm like, but it's hard to quit gambling because like if it's in the mail, like, I don't know, it's like in our adrenaline. Like we want to gamble. It's in our blood.
Well, and plus he won 8,000.
And he won 8,000.
And that's going to stick to his mind forever. And now every time he goes to see the table or he's going to gamble, then that's what he's going to think.
Yeah. So there's like in college, this is what really made me even more of a gambler is like, there's a game that you get it's like 5-card stud, but it was like Caribbean poker. They don't have it anymore. But back in the day, I was playing Caribbean poker and I was sitting on the second seat and I was playing with one other dude. And I was playing for like 45 minutes straight. And then one guy comes into the front seat and I was like, oh, can you sit over here? He goes, no, I want to sit over there. So the first hand that he gets a roll flush.
Oh my God, that was your hand.
That was my hand, and it was $500,000.
Wow. Okay.
And it was crazy because I was like 20 years old, and that could have been my hand because I've been playing for 45.
Yeah.
That could have been real life changing, right? 500,000 in college. But I don't know. It could have been negative for me.
It could have been negative. You could have been. You could have been homeless.
It could have been. Money. Like I could have been kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But like I was getting mad because I was like, dude, that was my card, and you took it from me, right?
Wow.
And I so for the whole time, because it takes paperwork to get paid and like sign papers and stuff. And like actually, I don't know if I could have won because I might not have been 21 at the time.
Ooh.
Because then you have to sign paperwork.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Well, maybe I could have. No. I was a senior. So I was 21.
21. Okay.
But what's crazy is, so I was waiting and to see like the reaction. He was like happy, but he was kind of like, whatever. And then he tipped the dealer $100. I was like, oh my God. And I told the dealer, I was like, if I won, I would give you at least like 10 grand.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. That's like, especially the first hand. It wasn't like even like anything. And I was like, $5 progressive where he put, and then he bet $25, and then he hit the freaking royal flush on the first hand. I was like, oh my gosh, I was about to kick his ass so bad.
Well, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, you never know. Like you said, it could have been a negative impact in your life, but here you are.
Yep.
You're a business owner, so you know what? You're doing good.
Yeah, and it's fun, like because gambling now isn't like about trying to win money to like change my life, but it's like besides playing the lotto, I guess, but like it's just more entertainment and just extra fun, and it's just kind of gives you like the edge of like adrenaline and stuff.
And going back to like our kids, that's what you have to teach them. It's like, hey, you know what? This is for fun. I want you to learn, because eventually you'll start going to Vegas or going somewhere where you'll be gambling, but at least have fun.
Right.
You know, you could do anything else, but gambling's good.
Yeah, as long as gambling isn't stressful, then it's fine. But if it's like where you're gambling to make rent or to like put food on the table or whatever. Nope. But I know like FedEx, their story is like they were about to go bankrupt. And the CEO of FedEx basically took the rest of the company money and went to Vegas and then turned that money into like a couple $1,000,000. So he had like 200 or 300. I forgot this story, but it's a couple 100,000, and then turned that money into like $2 million and then use that money to grow FedEx. And so like, I guess it just depends on like, I guess timing and stuff, but like,
depends what you do with the money too.
I guess so. But like, I mean, just jeopardizing your entire like company fund to try to come out, and it's kind of like,
I mean, if you only have like a couple $100,000 and you're like in the brink of bankruptcy, then what's the point? So he took a gamble.
He took a gamble. He did
and it paid off. Yeah,
it did pay off. So anyways,
I remember we did that with our company money.
We did, but we played very conservatively.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a pretty good amount of excess cash. So we had about $500,000 in the bankroll, and then we were using that to play craps on the don't pass.
And then
start with like 1,000, 2,000 per bet. You lose, double up. You still have a pretty good amount. As long as you don't go on like a 10-point streak, you're pretty good.
Exactly.
But
we use that for like comps and just for like free entertainment, for free food and rooms for the company. So that was a fun time. Yeah.
So the positive things of gambling is like you learn how to be disciplined as long as you gamble with responsibility. And then comps in Vegas, which a lot of hotels are more stingy now because they're not corporate. But I mean, you do get some comps. You get better rooms. You get food comps. You get golf. You get car transportation. And you kind of make you feel like a king, or like you're false reality for the weekend or something.
For sure.
And you get free shows, but it's ultimately like you don't want to do that for your life.
That's you don't. And actually, one of my hosts, Marlon, he actually told me, Sonny, instead of you trying to make comps, and if you're up 20, 30K and you don't get those comps, just walk away. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right, because why should I sit there and play 4 hours, try to get like $1,000 comp versus I'm up 20,000? Then I would just pay $1,000 and just walk away with 19,000.
I agree.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I know like we're talking about comps and stuff, but like, because I know your story, and you have a son, Bryce, who's, like younger, and like you kind of like taught him the life of Vegas life and comps and all that. So like he even knows like words like comp restrictions. You're like, Dad, you're on comp restrictions at 10 years old.
Comp restriction means that I'm not getting the normal comps because I'm not playing as much as before. So they kind of restricted my comps, and my son was so used to the red carpet treatment. And one time, I didn't get that red carpet treatment. It's like, oh, Daddy's on comp restrictions.
Exactly. And you're like, what the heck is that? Daddy, why are they just putting us in a limousine, not a Rolls Royce for car pickup?
Exactly.
I was like, oh, you must be on comp restrictions. So like, I mean, the way that Vegas works, if you guys don't know, is like they give comps based on how much dollars you bet per hand and how long you play. And the ideal player is me, not Sonny. Like I usually play like 4 to 8 hours a day at $500, $300 to $500 a hand, usually blackjack. So it's like a lot of different hands. So there's a lot of money exchanging. Whereas Sonny plays craps, and he usually plays for like 1 hour a day.
Yeah, 1 or 2 hours a day. My average hand would be like 1,000 to 2,000 a hand.
Right.
But, like Sam said, that's not ideal. So they're looking for more like Sam's players, where they play long hours, a lot of hands.
Yeah, because like even though my hands average is like 500 and his is like 2,000, I'm doing 500 at blackjack at 4 to 6 hours a day, which is a lot more money exchange versus what he's doing. And craps is slower. So
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun thing, and it's like, life of a gambler and Vegas is like fun, and like, but it's like everyone out there, man, be responsible in the way you gamble, and
Have fun.
have fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this session is it's been a good session, and it's time to go. And make sure you watch your show next time. And our sponsor, Fiji Water, here is make sure you go drink Fiji water and Kirkland water. So until next time, listen to Scared Money Don't Make Money. Adios.